You're listening to Atlanta Baseball Talk, your weekly podcast for all things Atlanta Braves.
Welcome to show number 314. Today is Sunday, September 6th, 2015, and my name is Steve. Happy Labor Day to you. No Hammy tonight, but I'm joined by Curtis. And Kurt, in tonight's show, we'll talk about Fredi dropping his filter in his post-game news conferences, check in on how the kids are doing on the Major League Club, and also talk about Jerry Krasnick's Rebuild article on ESPN. But first, Kurt, I felt like we had to do away with the good and bad segment to the start of this week's show, at least for this week, because it's gotten laughably bad now. I mean, the team has won one game over the past 3 weeks, and most of the losses are not very close. So, Kurt, are you pissed as a fan at the front office for how they've gone about this rebuild, the shape they've left this team in the second half?
It's so hard to get my head around this as a fan, and then as a, conscientious observer as we are in this capacity. I'm pissed that the just kind of continued attitude that I feel like we're getting from the front office, from the Capalella interview. It's just this kind of, it continues to be, we're so much smarter than everyone else, and this is all going to pay off in the long run. And I mean, obviously they cannot come out and say, we screwed this whole thing up royally, and we have decimated this team, and it's going to be bad for 10 years. I mean, they, as a business, as a PR move, they could never say they could never own up to anything. And I will grant them at this point that they still believe that these moves, because they have to believe that these moves they've made will come to fruition. But at minimum, I think it's insane to believe that the team that's on this field, the field right now, is anywhere close to even a wild card slot by 2017.
Wow. Yeah, I mean, I'm not ready to say that because I keep harping this. I don't think we know yet what these guys are going to turn into. But I want to get back to something you said. I've always found Scherholtz really, really arrogant. But I didn't find the Capalella interview. This was with DOB, I think in Saturday's paper. I didn't find it arrogant. I found it like, we believe in what we're doing, and we know it's painful, and we know we've done this really fast, as opposed to like what the Pirates and the Royals did, and they took a little more time doing it. So, it's been a bit more blunt force trauma to the roster than we would be used to. But do you find it arrogant?
Well, I mean, all this talk about, well, we're winners, and, so we know what we're doing because John Hart's been a winner and John Scherholtz has been a winner and I've been a winner, and so we're winners, and there's no way that what we've done is not going to be met with winning. I find that arrogant because, you and I obviously don't know, nor does anybody else, nor do they, frankly. They don't know. They go into this, obviously, with the best intentions. I will never suggest that they didn't go into this thinking that this is, and even I support it. I mean, there was no way that you were going to have to, we've gone over all that stuff. I mean, keep these guys around. There was no reason to keep Kimbrel on this team. Get what you can for him. You dump Melvin. I mean, all the things that they've done, I don't have a problem with. But I just, as these weeks go by, and what I'm seeing on the field, it's tougher and tougher for me to believe that this is not a long-term rebuild process, that this is something that can be turned around in a couple of years. And I know that they're talking about in that interview, in that article, in that interview, that they will have more money to spend next year. They will have even more money to spend 2017. You have to believe that even Liberty Media is not going to allow the Braves to go into SunTrust Park fielding a team that is this awful. I mean, there's no way that you can open up a season in a brand new ballpark because that goodwill is not going to carry over. I'm sorry. I mean, people in Cobb County are just as big of fans as people anywhere else and see what this team is doing on the field. I mean, just because you move to a new ballpark does not necessarily mean people are going to show up to see a team that's going to win 62 games.
Well, and Kurt, I think, that to me, the point as I look ahead for the next couple of years, I believe that they're going to spend to make up mistakes that they may have potentially made right now. What's really weird about right now is it's so foreign to feel like game to game, it's just absolutely pointless. And right now, the whole exercise feels pointless. And I haven't felt that way about a Braves team, even in those sort of dark days in 08 and 09. It feels much more pointless this year than it has in years past. And to me, that's what is awful about the end of this season is it doesn't even seem worth it.
Well, and even 90, you saw glimpses from guys. Glavine, you saw that there was potential there with a guy like Tom Glavine. I know that, they're young and all that kind of stuff. But
yeah,
it's tough to see when these guys are they're non-competitive, I mean, and frankly, I was talking to someone the other day, and at this point, I'm almost ready for them to bring up whoever they have. Chien-Ming Wang, I don't even know if he's still pitching for Gwinnett. Go find Buddy Carlisle, go sign whoever, and just bring them in to not put these guys through this. There's a point in this exercise where you're almost beating a dead horse. I mean, you read the stuff with Winless today. He sounds like he's hurt. So shut him down. There is no more value for him to pitch this year. Shut all these guys down, frankly, or let them go pitch in Gwinnett and get some confidence back. I just don't see what the point is in going out there and them getting shelled every single time they go out there. And I might be unique in that. And I mean, obviously, Tehran is a veteran, so he stays. Shelby Miller is a veteran, so he stays. But it's just, to me, at this point, I feel like you're almost damaging the goods.
Yeah, I mean, what's depressing is that we saw a lot of great glimpses in the first half. Whistler looked great. Banuelos looked great. Fulte looked great a few times. Jace Peterson. And all those glimpses have essentially just gone away, which makes the second half even more painful.
Sure.
Well, so Kurt, after the blowout loss on Thursday night, Fredi dropped his usual manager speak and had some pretty choice words about the results on the field. Quote, "The stuff we've been seeing, it's really unacceptable. Guys," meaning pitchers, "are professional, major leaguers. Some of these guys have a lot of years playing in the minor leagues, and for them to get hit around like that, it's really not acceptable. Our coaching staff is patient, but sooner or later, let's go. Let's do something to get somebody out. That's the message, really. Maybe I sound frustrated myself because you sit there and watch the stuff day in and day out. Roger beats his head into the ground every single day with these guys. We've got to get over that stuff." So, Kurt, you surprised at Fredi coming out and having no filter like that?
I guess I'm surprised just because of his demeanor and the approach that he normally takes. But hell yeah, I mean,
yeah, hard not to agree with all.
Oh my
of
God,
it.
yeah. I mean, I was like, all I could say was finally. And even, go ahead. Sorry.
I was going to say he's from the Bobby Cox mold, right? And Bobby, even as bad as it's been this season, if Bobby was at the helm, he never would have said that stuff. So I think we really, for one of the first time, saw a glimpse of the real Fredi and the real emotions and feelings he's experiencing as he's watching this train wreck night after night. So yeah, I'm glad. And I think that this team and all these youngsters could use a little bit of that from the man at the top.
Yeah. And you saw, and I mean, I don't know if it had anything to do with these comments. You saw Tehran come out and pitch brilliantly the next day.
And was fired up getting out of that last inning and all that stuff.
And then Shelby Miller gets hosed by his defense. And,
so bad.
And then Banuelos was terrible today. So, you hope that some of this will be impactful. And maybe that's, again, why I think that some of these guys need to be sent back down right now. Maybe that impression will be left on them, too. It's almost like here is this spot in the rotation we're providing to you, and you get to be as bad as you can possibly be. And I know that they don't have other guys that can fill some of these roles as starting pitchers, but at this point, what does it matter? But I think if you send these guys down, that even makes a bigger impression on them that nothing is going to be given to you. You're going to have to earn this stuff. And right now, none of you guys are earning a spot on a major league roster because you're terrible. And he had another quote today. He said something about how awful the 0-2 pitches, the 1-2 pitches that these guys, they get these guys, and Whistler had it in his start the other night, that they get these guys in a position where they could strike them out, and they throw a meatball right over the middle of the plate. It's like they're bailing out the hitter. So he had to make comments again today about what's happening with this pitching staff.
Kurt, do you think the team has quit?
That's such a tough word.
Do they not care about winning, Kurt?
Yeah.
Which, to your point, I see a lot of that, in our Twitter feed, just on message boards. And yeah, I find it hard to believe. I mean, I believe that more about certain at-bats last year, frankly.
Yeah. Where
BJ and Justin and even Hayward at times just looked like they were giving away at-bats. I honestly don't see that this year.
Yeah.
Sorry,
I mean, you see a guy like Swisher. I mean, of all people that could, I mean, I guess he's probably trying to earn a job, but I mean, you would hope that they would take note of him playing like he's playing right now, or, Brzezinski, or, I mean, that there are examples that they can look at of veteran players who I don't believe have quit. And I mean, I'm not going to ever suggest that these rookies have quit, but I think that their self-confidence is so shot right now that it's worse than quitting. They can't compete because they're so beaten down right now about they're shell-shocked.
You know what? Shell-shocked was a note that I took as well. I mean, when the tone of the game gets set by the majority of your starting rotation being rookies who have lost all of the glimpses that they were showing in the first half, and you're down early every single game, and then every other time, your Tehran or Miller can't go out there and be perfect every time, they start to give up runs. I mean, they're just crushed under the weight of it. I think that's what we're seeing more than they've quit. They're just beaten down.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, you look at some of these ERAs, and I mean, there's no point in going over these numbers all night long because they're so bad. But I mean, and these are basically just one start that they've had in September. But Williams Perez 7.2, Detweiler 16.2, Whistler 17.18, Benuelas 17.36, Marksberry 18. I mean.
Freaking Marksberry and Detweiler and McKirahan
and Kniff 18.
God,
I mean, I mean, to go through a stretch where your pitching staff has an ERA 8.5 plus.
I know. It is crazy.
And I keep using this word. I'm almost like the guy from Princess Bride. It's inconceivable.
So, Kurt, I would say every other day we at least get one question directed to us on Twitter about, do you think Fredi and his staff gets fired? Now, I think that there's no way at all that Fredi and his staff get fired. But do you think that any of this should be put on Fredi and his staff?
There are moments in the fits of anger as a fan that I absolutely point the finger at them because they are the manager and the staff, and you have to find a way. I'm not suggesting that they should be playing 500 baseball or they should be fighting for a wild card berth or something like that. But
like playing 100 baseball would be pretty good at this point.
Yeah, maybe winning more than one game in 3 weeks. And I mean, what's going on with the pitching staff?
Yeah,
and I mean, but in the same sense, this is like, you're trying to put your finger in the dike and the Amazon is flowing around both sides of you. So what can you do to counteract any of this? I mean, we talked about it. Your offense is terrible. Your defense, frankly, right now is atrocious.
Oh, I know.
Your starting pitching is awful. I mean, Benuelas was on a 70 pitch count today, and by the end of the second inning, he was basically at 50. So you're going to have to go to your bullpen. Thank God Whistler threw those 2 great innings today, but you're going to have to go to this awful bullpen. I mean, as a manager, as a staff, I mean, you're babysitting at this point, and I don't mean to like overemphasize how young these guys are, but I mean that's almost the way it is. That you're
crossing your fingers at this point.
And I mean, what can you do? You know, your offense is not producing, your pitching staff is so bad, and I mean, it has to take a toll on even the most grizzled veteran. Przinsky's comments today was like, I've never seen anything like this in my entire career, and he's been around for 16 years or something like that.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, I mean, the team is a shell of a team. We've been saying it for weeks. You have no bullpen. Your offense is well undermanned. The starting pitching, we've talked about it a bunch already. Yeah, I look, Fredi should have been fired a couple years ago, but this year is not about Fredi. It's just not.
It's
just not.
And Coppolella said he's not getting fired. So
well, that too. All right, so Kurt, time for a new segment called Checking on the Kids. Let's see how some of the rookies on the major league squad are doing lately. So, Folty went on the DL this week after puking so much from the flu that he strained his chest muscles or something crazy. Oliveira got called up this week. Amazing what a non-story that became. And it's been an ugly start, right? He has 2 hits, both singles, 1 walk over 5 games this week. His slash line is 133, 188, 133.
Oh, and he missed today because he's hurt.
Right. He missed today because he's hurt. He had that ugly missed pop-up early in the game Saturday night that led to just more of the horrendous luck that Shelby Miller had. Jace Peterson batted 3 for 22 this week, or a 136. He had 1 walk. Matt Whistler, right after that great start in that awful Yankees series where he went 6 innings and gave up 2, and we were hoping it was a real building block. This week, in that first game against the Nats, which led to all of Fredi's comments, he pitched 1 2/3 and gave up 7. He did pitch, like you mentioned, 2 innings today, hitless, scoreless relief on Sunday's game against the Nats. And then Bethancourt. So he started 3 games and appeared in 2 others and was hitless for the week. No walks. His slash line is all zeros. And Kurt, there was that absolute boneheaded play Saturday night after that squeeze play, missed tag, which was not his fault. I mean, the guy just eluded him. The run scores, but then he flips the ball to Shelby inexplicably, who was standing right next to him, and Bethancourt is between the guy at third and home. So it results in another run coming home. I mean, to me, it's like, that's the stuff we'd yell at my 9-year-olds, you know, the 9-year-olds on my son's baseball team about know where the runners are and know what you're going to do with the ball. Like, it was such this moment and this situation is way too big for me, and I panicked moment for Bethancourt. It was really ugly.
Yeah, this moment is me planting myself as a backup catcher for 3, 4, 5 different organizations throughout my career. This is me becoming Jared Saltalamacchia.
I agree. I mean, I honestly think, Kurt, that's the beginning of the end for Bethancourt. I mean, what do you think about him in general? Do you agree with that? He's not going to be the opening day starter next year.
No, I'd be shocked if he's on the Braves.
I agree. I think that moment sealed his deal, and they're going to be looking for a solution at catcher in the offseason. I think their offseason shopping list got a little longer after Saturday night.
Right, which doesn't help.
No. There's enough spots. So, Kurt, if the rest of the season is really about seeing bright spots in these kids, these foundational pieces for the future, this wasn't a very good week.
Yes, avert your eyes. It's almost like that. I kept thinking as I was kind of watching on and off today, they need to be running that Benny Hill music, you know? When he's at the end of the show, when he's running around and all the people are chasing him, you know, because that's what I'm thinking of. I mean, it's like these clips will be on during rain delays. It's like, look how terrible this team is. Look how awful they play. You know, seems like it's just gonna keep popping up as we watch.
Well, it's funny you say that because DOB's tweet after Bethancourt's ill-advised flip the sentence started with just circus.
Well, and I love the songs that he keeps putting in his blogs this week. It was like, Even the Losers by Tom Petty and stuff like that. Yes, but Tom Petty, even the losers get lucky sometimes. Not so much in the case of the Atlanta Braves this year.
All right, Kurt, it's time for fair or foul, where I throw something out there and you agree with it fair or disagree with it foul. So, Kurt, in a Jerry Krasnick article this week on ESPN about the rebuild, he quoted an unnamed National League executive saying that the guys behind Shelby could turn out to be a, quote, bunch of number 4 starters or bullpen guys. So, Kurt, fair or foul, you see merit in this assessment.
Isn't that sweet? God, I read that and I was just like, holy cow. Of course, I've been thinking that the whole time as I watched these guys' ERAs balloon into the triple digits. I think it's fair. And I know it's early, and I know that when I tweeted this the other night, I took that quote and tweeted it the other night, and there was a lot of feedback that it's early and it's too early to judge. And I get all that, but, you have a bunch of guys. You have Fulte who throws straight as an arrow. You have Whistler who doesn't seem like he can really kind of get anybody out. You have Banuelos who is hurt, and who knows what's going to come of him. Williams Perez we're probably never going to see again. So you really need some of these guys to be breakthrough pitchers, and I'm just not buying it right now. So, yeah, I think there is absolute merit in the assessment, even as early as this assessment might be.
Yeah, so to me, this is just a bunch of crap because you mentioned it. We have no idea. And Krasnick, who I usually think is a pretty smart and thoughtful writer, to put such a thin quote from like an anonymous source just to have another side to this story, you just don't know. And, Tukey's a number 1, a first rounder. Fried is a first rounder. You've got Fulte, highly touted. You've got Whistler, highly touted. I mean, to me, it just adds drama to something that is so unknowable at this point. I don't know. To me, it's just, it was really there as a device to give us another side to the story. Maybe at the end of next year you can put that in there, but not now.
And it would be pretty bad luck to hit on none of these guys.
Yeah, I agree. So, Kurt, in Friday night's game, Fredi brought Vizcaino in the 8th to pitch that 2-1 ball game. The Braves had the lead. So, fair or foul, you like this move, bringing our closer in the 8th?
Well, after we've screamed about this for however long it's been since that LA post-game home run to Uribe. Look, at this point, I appreciate what he's trying to do. He's trying to win any game that they can possibly win. The only guy you can trust out of the bullpen is Vizcaino, and to go without saying. So, yeah, I totally supported it. Of course, it blew up in their face because it's the Braves right now, but I can't in one say, oh well, you should have brought Kimbrel in and let him go 2 innings, and then in a situation which obviously is not the same, but right now this team is as desperate as they can possibly be to bring in your best pitcher, your closer, to try and close out a 2-1 ball game. I have no problem with it whatsoever.
Yeah, I mean, I didn't go back and look this up, but I'm pretty confident saying that Friday night was the only time we had a lead in the 8th inning of a game this week.
I might go to say a month.
So to me, it was beautiful. I mean, you had the heart of the Nats order coming up. The game was hanging in the balance right then. I thought it was amazing. And kudos to Fredi for showing that kind of evolution in his managing style to do that. I thought it was great.
And too bad Ham's not here because he was adamant that it was a terrible move. So
I know, and I just don't even understand it. I had so many insults for Hammy.
Yeah.
All right, so Kurt, next up is Shot in the Dark, our prediction for the coming week. And let's start with our listener pick for Shot in the Dark. It was sent in on Twitter from our follower, Jonathan Pettis, who predicted that the Braves would score more runs in Shelby Miller's 2 starts last week than they would for all the other starters combined this week. a real shot in the pitch dark. So the Braves scored a total of 2 whole runs across Shelby's 2 starts. And in the other 5 games, the Braves went crazy and scored 11 runs. So, Jonathan, thanks for sending it in. And folks, get your shots in the dark submitted on Twitter or Facebook. Before first pitch on Monday, and we'll pick one, we'll track it, and we'll discuss it on the show next week. All right, so Kurt, before we get to our predictions for this week, let's check in on how we did last week. So, Kurt, you predicted that the Braves would get outscored by 18 runs in the Nats series.
It seems like such a softball now.
I know, considering it almost happened in game 1.
Right.
So the Braves got outscored 36-9 for a difference of 25. Way to sell them short, Kurt. Ham predicted that Simmons would bat over 325 with 2 doubles.
I'm going to start laughing again.
Simmons was 0 for the week. I didn't realize that, man.
I didn't know that either.
And I predicted that both Fulte and Miller would each get at least 1 win this week. We know that didn't happen. So, Kurt, the win goes to you.
Wow, it's been so long.
I know. Congratulations.
It's almost been as long since the Braves won.
So you take a 1-0 lead for the month of September.
Sweet.
All right, so Curtis, Hammy, this week, his prediction is that Bourne hits over 300 with 2 stolen bases. I think that he was drinking a little too much at his Sunday barbecue today before he sent that in.
Bourne?
Yeah, yeah. What do you got for this week?
That the Braves will be in last place by 3 games by the end of the week.
Yeah, I mean we play the Phillies first 3 games, so and I'm gonna predict that Fredi has 2 multi-homer games this week. He's gonna bust out, and we're still gonna lose.
Fredi Gonzalez is almost due for a tossing too.
Yeah.
He'll come out and do one of his kind of mailed-in, I'm trying to fire the troops out, throw me out of this game efforts. It's coming this week. Maybe that'll be my part due shot in the dark.
I like it. All right, so Kurt, let's take a look at our win-loss predictions we made last week and then look ahead to this week's game. So for this 0-7 week, no one got it right. Ham was closest with his 1-6 prediction. Kurt, you and I were crazy optimists with our 2-5.
How dare we?
I know. All right, so Kurt, for the week ahead, apparently there are no mercy rules in the major leagues, and we have to continue playing games. We have 7 scheduled this week. Here are the matchups. They go to Philly for 3, and then are home for 4 with the Mets. So in Philly, game 1, it's Williams Perez, God help us, against Aaron Harang, who's really come back to earth. By the way, he's got a 4.89 ERA.
Well, he's about to get that cured.
Next is Matt Whistler, although with his 2 innings today, Sunday, and he pitched like 41 pitches. I'm not sure he's really going to pitch on Tuesday, but Whistler against Aaron Nola and his 4.02. And then finishing up in Philly, it will be Tehran, who, one of his last road starts was in Philly where he pitched very well. He goes up against Adam Morgan and his 4.42 ERA. We then come back home for 4 with the Mets. Game 1 against the Mets will be Shelby versus Syndergaard and his 3.31. Next up is Banuelos against Cologne in his 4.18. Did you see from Saturday night the Cologne flip behind the back throw to first base?
I have not seen it.
Oh, my God. Go look it up after we're done here. And everybody, if you haven't seen it, it is so worth it. It is tremendous. I mean, it's tremendous. All right. Next up is Williams Perez against Steven Matz, making his second start back from the DL. He has a 1.89 ERA. And then we finish up the week with Whistler versus Jonathan Neese and his 4.17. So we miss Matt Harvey and we miss DeGrom against the because they're like skipping a Harvey start, I think. Did you see? Have you been following all that?
Yeah, that he's shutting it down.
Yeah, but then today he came back and said, I'm pitching in the postseason. He got so flipped out by all the negative press he got. And if you haven't looked up some of the back pages on the New York Post and New York Daily News, they just skewered him.
Well, it's crazy that he would come out and do that stuff after what Strasburg went through when they shut him down. That Harvey would be so adamant about it.
Well, to me, what's really crazy, like, I get it. There's no real loyalty anymore, and you got to watch out for yourself and all that stuff. But how does this come out on September 4th?
Right.
Like, what has happened to the communication between the Mets and Harvey and even his agent? That's the part I really, really don't get. But, the Mets, even in the middle of this success, managed to have a lot of goofy stuff going on. All right, so Curtis, Ham's predicting a 1-6 week, 1-2 in the first series against the Phillies and getting swept by the Mets. I will echo that exactly. How about you?
Well, I feel like we owe the Mets. Since we really did them no help this weekend.
That's true.
I am going 0-7. I am not going to pick the Braves to win a game until they actually do win a game. So I think they get another sweep of the week, and God help us. But yeah, that's what I see. I just, at this point, how can they win a game? And I will ask you, as a fan, are you, not that you're rooting against the Braves, but do you mind them losing this many games? I mean, at this point, don't you kind of want them to be the worst team in the league so they have the number one draft pick?
Yeah, I want them to be the worst team in the league, but I want Whistler and Folty and Oliveira and Bethancourt to have great games, And my God, we're just not even getting that right now.
Well, it would be nice to see, to see two starters in a row have good games, like back-to-back, and two, a guy have back-to-back good starts. Either one of those things would be nice, because it seems like we'll see a good start, and then the next start will be awful. And really, very rarely are we getting two even decent starts in a row.
Do you think that Shelby's going to get a win before the end of the season? I can't believe we're actually having this conversation, but it's freaking September 6th.
Yeah, I think he'll get a couple, but that's it. I think he'll maybe end up with two. And I mean, frankly, he certainly has been hosed. And the stat since this losing streak, this winless streak, because he did get that no decision, or I guess they won a game that he started, right? But he didn't get the win. Ardsma got the win, of course.
Oh, yeah, that's right. That's right.
But the run support for him is like 1.6.
Yeah, 2 wins the rest of the way, Kurt. I mean, I'm not even making a joke. That seems kind of high.
Yeah. And I mean, I guess my point was trying to be that as well as he's pitched in certain games, he's not pitched that well in almost an equal number of those starts. So, yeah. And I mean, I don't trust the offense to out-hit anyone at this point. So,
thank God we have the Blue Jays coming up in 2 weeks.
Good Lord.
On that note, folks, that is the show. Everyone, please make sure you have us in your RSS feeds or subscriptions on iTunes or Stitcher so that you don't miss any of our weekly shows. And as always, check us out at AtlantaBaseballTalk.com for past shows, to check out our blogs, and to post in our comment section. And be sure to follow us on Twitter at ATL Baseball Talk and to like us on Facebook. Thanks again for listening, everyone, and go Braves!
Thanks for listening to Atlanta Baseball Talk, your weekly podcast for all things Atlanta Braves. To find new shows, to post in our forum, or to send a comment, please visit us at AtlantaBaseballTalk.com.
Had to admit